welcome back to a Gen Mouse 45 video, where today we're going to be completing the Redwall novels tier list. Yay! As most of you may know, last year, Chef Emily, Emerick, and I, we created foods from the Redwall series and made our own Redwall feast because there's lots and lots of yummy food in each and every single book. But then I was doing some research online and I saw that there's sort of this tier list, very popular, and that they had one just for the Redwall novels, and I was super stoked and excited. I know I've been putting it off for a while, I've been trying to sit down and do this, but now I have a good chance to finally record this video and just geek out about the series that I loved reading growing up. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. Now, I was trying to think, like, do I just leave the book order as is? Do I put it in the way that I received the books? I think I'm just going to go with what's here, what's available. So we're going to start with the Bell Maker. Hopefully it's big enough. Images and whatnot. So the Bell Maker was actually pretty good. It follows the events after Mariel of Redwall, when Joseph was living in Redwall Abbey, and then he has to go like save his daughter and his friend. I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I've just sat and like binge read all the books, if that's even a thing. So I'm trying to remember like little bits and pieces, but I do remember liking it. Not as much as Mariel of Redwall, but it's a decent read. So I'm gonna stick this for now. These, I should also mention too that these could also change at any given moment as well. So for now we're gonna put it B. B for Bellmaker. There we go. Alright, next up we have Lord Brocktree. I believe this is the very first one, like if you read chronologically and not by publication order, this is the very, very first book that, like, this is like before Redwall Abbey is even built. Like, you know, Mossflower is still in like the beginning stages and all that, so I did like it. I like the action scenes a bit more. Did focus a bit more on Badger Lords, but then of course, like if you compare it to Salamandastron, it's like they both have very different and unique perspectives. So I'm trying to think. I would say, I mean, it's not very memorable in the fact that it's the first one in the series, so I'm gonna put it in C for now, C tier. Alright, next up we have Doomright. So this was the one with like the large, I think it was a crow. I think this one was written towards the end because I have a hardcover copy of the book, and the hardcover copies always came out before the paperbacks. Who else remembers going and just looking at the paperback books at Borders when Borders was still around? Used to love that. Let's see, Doomright. I don't really remember much about it. I probably should go back and reread. Let's see, Doomright. I'm gonna stick with Lord Brocktree for now. Eulalia. Now this was a very well written book. Absolutely loved it. A little bit gory at times, especially with the whole red scar that the badger has on his nose. You know, he has like the red lust in his eyes. And then of course like the classic badger war cry, Eulalia, I absolutely love. I saw something the other day that had like capital E, U, and I think like an I and an A. I think it was something like that, I don't remember. But it almost looked like Eulalia, and I was about to say it too. I was like, nope, that's something else. That is not the badger war cry. So I really enjoyed this book. Very well written. Nicely paced too, because sometimes it feels like some of the books can start out the same and then, you know, it kind of sticks with the similar rhythm, but I did like the pacing of this book and how it was portrayed, so yes, A tier. I would not recommend starting with Eulalia. I should mention you should probably start with Redwall or even Mossflower if you're looking into joining the Redwall series. Join us. It's so much fun. Yeah, I definitely start with Mossflower or Redwall. I would save Eulalia for like when you're comfortable knowing about like the history of badgers and all that. So, but very good read. Next up we have Loamhedge, and oh my gosh, I adored Loamhedge so much. Ouch. I just hit myself on my bookshelf. No. Uh, yes, like getting to know. So Lomehedge was built before Redwall Abbey, like several years beforehand, and there was like this like terrible sickness. Like Lomehedge Abbey was like in a very different location. There's like a terrible sickness, and then they all had to leave, and that's when all the mice came to Mossflower Woods, and then they started up Redwall Abbey. So in Lomehedge, we get more of the lore. We kind of get little bits and pieces. In Mossflower, we get bits and pieces. And Matameo, but Lomehedge was just like, you want lore? Here's some lore. And I was like, yes, Lomehedge lore, I will take it. So I'm actually going to put Lomehedge as S tier. I love stories that cover like backstories of what happened and everything, so yeah, it's going there. Actually, I just realized these are probably in alphabetical order. Maybe? No, because Martin the Warrior's dead last. Why are you last? Alright, next up we have the Long Patrol. So this is actually more focused on the hares going into battle. The hares actually work, I don't know if it's like work, but they're usually stationed at Salamandastron to help protect the Badger Lord of the Mountain. That is known as Salamandastron, Lord of the Shore, usually. So, I'm trying to remember. So, I actually went to go pick up my copy of the Long Patrol, and again, it's paperback, because most of I think like the last 3 or 4 books I have hardcovers of. This one was starting to like fall off the pages, like the binding isn't as secure anymore. So I might need to get a new copy of The Long Patrol. I didn't realize how into it I was. And it is a good book. If you like adventures, if you like Brian Jacques, the writer and creator of Redwall, he did a lot of like songs and ditties, poems, riddles, that sort of thing. So if that is your cup of tea, check out Cosplay Tea Time. Uh, you can also, I believe there was like a lot of like those kind of things. Because what are you gonna do when you're marching? Like, you sing songs and that kind of thing. So there's a bunch of that, and really good story, well-driven story. I put it in the B category. It might change. B for broken binding, because my poor book is starting to fall apart. I'll eventually get a new copy, because there's another book I'm going to talk about here in a second that I actually did have to replace because the pages were falling out and made it really hard to read. And I was like so worried about losing them because it's such a good story. So I'll get to hear in a minute. Okay, so next up we have The Legend of Luke. So Luke was the father of Martin the Warrior, as we can see. I don't know why his book is last. His book is so good. But we have The Legend of Luke. So this is talking about Luke's adventures. He left to go. Do I remember what he wanted to go find? Not treasure or anything, but he had to do some. Oh, that's right. His wife died, and I believe he was gonna go seek revenge on his wife. And he left Martin the Warrior with somebody else to look after him. So yeah, it was very interesting read. We get to know a bit more about his sword and stuff. It was always nice to read during the summer, just a nice little adventure away out to the sea. You read a lot about the sea in this book, I do remember, because of course you have the ship that's stuck between the 2 rocks and everything, so it's kind of lore based, not as much as Lomehedge, that's why Lomehedge is S tier, but it's kind of like, if you want to know more about Luke and his story and all that, you can. I'm gonna put it in A tier. Well, I do. I think this is the one where there's like a specific creature that has like problems with like a toothache or something. Like that whole scene was like really really crazy to read. How he uses like the hilt of his sword, like that little marble piece or the gem piece or something, excuse me, to like help like crack the tooth and stuff. Like that was really interesting to read. I was like, oh, take care of your teeth, folks. Brush them, floss them, all that good stuff. Alright, next up we have Mariel of Redwall. I know it's cut off, but anyone who sees this cover knows that that is Mariel and her gully whacker, which she used to defeat the seagulls and all that. Her mighty piece of rope, which is a very interesting weapon choice. I mean, I'm sure they probably did have like whips and stuff. I think one of the rat villains did have a whip that they cracked. I can't remember who. I feel like it's Clooney, but I might be wrong. But yeah, she used like a rope to like swing at her enemies. I thought that was interesting. And then what I remember about this book was like getting the book. This was like tiny Jen. I remember like one time I like talked with my grandparents on the phone about it and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I'm excited for this new book, and I really want it. I don't know if it was for my birthday or Christmas, but then the copy, and I still have this copy to this day. I'm probably never gonna get rid of it, even if the pages fall out. But yeah, they sent me a copy of Mariel of Redwall for, I feel like it was Christmas. Gosh, memories aren't doing too good. That's why we're doing this now, while I still have some knowledge. But yes, I do remember reading her story. I think that's when she meets the other mouse, and then they both go on adventures because he feels different and stuff. Almost reminds me of my two OCs, like Leora being very strong, battle oriented, and then Seethan's the one that's kind of there to support her and everything. Like, I think that's why I like it. Okay, then in that case, you're gonna go in the A tier. So, ooh, we're down one row. Nice. A tier for Mariel. Yes. Also, it was nice too, seeing like a feminine, because I think this was like early in publication, so uh, but yeah, it was nice seeing a female heroine. All right, next up we have Marl Fox, and for those that don't know, Marl Fox was really, really creepy to me. So like it was pretty scary. Like out of all the books, like I would consider this like horror, very terrifying stuff. So for at least for me, because I think I read this in like 7th or 8th grade, and I wasn't into scary stuff like I am now. Like now I can like tolerate a scary movie. Like I can sit there and just be like, yeah, it's effects and all this stuff. But like reading some of this stuff was really, really crazy to me. The way that they could just disappear, the way that they fought was like very vicious and aggressive and everything. So yeah, I was like, ooh, somebody hurt poor Brian Jacques, and now he's gonna take it out. But yeah, I can't remember the writing or anything like that. I just remember the characters and the character designs being very different than the past novels that I read, and even in future novels and stuff. So I don't want to put in S tier because I want like S to stand for scary. Because I feel like if I read it, maybe it'd be okay. But yeah, um, I'm gonna stick it in C tier because I don't remember the gist of the story. I just remember the characters. Hey, characters, C, haha. So, yeah. And again, this could change. Alright, Matameo. And I actually have the book with this cover, which is super duper cool. Um, let's see. I do remember watching. So, Redwall, Matameo, and Martin the Warrior were made into TV shows through PBS Kids. No Cable Kids Unite. So I do remember like watching the show and then reading the book. And I like how closely they followed the book for Matameo. We're going to talk about Redwall here in a minute. But with Matameo, uh, Sligo the Cruel's backstory, I feel like I should have done Redwall first. Yeah, I'm going to get into it, but let's just say this. Matameo is the son of Matthias, who appears in Redwall. Uh, but yeah, so Matameo was an interesting read. You get, again, a little bit about Loam Hedge. You guys know more about like slave trade and stuff, which was something very interesting to read as a 13, 14-year-old. So, but yeah, I did enjoy it, and I enjoyed this part of the show as well. I'm gonna put it. I feel like whenever I don't know, I just put it in the B tier. Maybe I'll stick it in the B tier for now. I do want to make clear too that the series order is different than the publication. So like, Redwall came out, was published first before Mossflower, but the events in Mossflower take place before Redwall. I hope that makes sense. Alright, Mossflower, which was I believe like the second or third book I got, but before I got it, I actually loaned it from the library. So fun fact about how I got started into reading Redwall. I was actually in middle school, my 6th grade year, going to this beautiful library. It's super duper huge, and lo and behold, I find the Redwall books. So for a while I was renting them from the library before we started getting them at Borders or through family members and stuff. So I remember checking out mossflower from the school library, and I remember I think we got out of school early that day because there was like snow coming, so it's fine with me. So, but yeah, school early, let's go. So I remember sitting on the bus, waiting for the bus to depart, and I open up the book, and I believe within the first pages it's like snowing or something. And it's so funny because outside my window it was like snowing, not like super duper heavily, but just like that nice like light snow and everything. So it made it really nice and cozy, just like, the whole scenery aspect of it. So I also, I think they were wildcats, which I don't know if we ever saw another wildcat again. I know there was a beaver in one book, and we never got beavers again. A lot of otters, though. But anyway, back to Mossflower. We get Knopf, we get the little mole. It was a really good book, really adventure themed, and it goes Martin the Warrior, which we'll get to here in a minute, and then it goes into the events at Mossflower because then Martin stays with the mice as they're building the new abbey, which becomes Redwall, and then his story about how he hung up his sword in favor of peace. So he has to go through all this trouble. Oh no. It was pretty interesting to read because I'm also remembering too that they built the abbey on top of like where the old place stood. So I do remember that. I would say I'm gonna put it in the A because this is pretty interesting. Lots of interesting characters. Getting to know a bit about Martin more. So I think it works out. Alright, next up we have Outcast of Redwall. I always think that leaf is like a hat for him or something, but I think it's just a leaf. So Outcast of Redwall features a ferret who gets adopted by one of the Redwallers, but he causes a lot of trouble. So then he's like the very first creature to be like outcast from Redwall and everything. So this one has Sunflash. It's a good read. I mean, obviously, I only remember bits and pieces, but it has been a while, so I think for now I'm going to put it in C. Oh, next to Marvel Fox. There you go. Let's see. Pearls of Lutra. I actually enjoyed. I think I got the book right before summer break and stuff, so like getting to read like all those adventures like right beforehand was like super duper fun. Let me see. So this is the one with the otter. She has to find these pearls. Pearls of Lutra has a lot of like pirates, a lot of fight scenes. It's a bit different from Hyrule. I don't think she was like an outcast or anything like that. I don't think she had like a home or a family and all that, but she manages to get the pearls and everything. So I think I'm gonna put it in C for now. Right, but we're going to move on to one of my favorites, and I just read this a little while ago, which is Rackety Tam. I'm actually surprised that the pages of Rackety Tam aren't falling off at this point. So it's about a Highland squirrel, with like the Scottish accents and everything. I don't know if he was Highlands or not, but he and his friend have to get their swords and honor back from the not so nice squirrels. I do remember that. And then they have to fight like these wolverine creatures, which were also scary. Not as scary as the Marl foxes, but still sounds just as terrifying. So this one is probably my absolute favorite. Absolutely love. Sorry, Loamhedge, move over. This one I would recommend to anybody. Maybe not at first. I'd be like, read Redwall, read Mossflower, but then move on to Rackety Tam because that one is my absolute favorite. And you also get the walking stone, if anybody remembers the walking stone. Oh, so cute. So, so cute. Alrighty, next up we go to the title, Redwall, of course. Is a classic. Always want to recommend it to folks. One of my favorites, both from the series, renting it from the library and everything, and then owning my own copy, still have that copy. Redwall is awesome. Love it. The only thing I didn't like was in the PBS show, they had like a, what's it called? Like a mill, water wheel thing that they added. They added a bunch of like weird stuff into the show, but most of the time they did stick with the book. I would prefer the book over the show. But yes, I do like it. It's one of my favorites, so it's gonna go in the A tier. Hi, Rulaine. This is about an otter. I think she was like, why can't female otters be skippers? It's like only the males. But then she ends up becoming like a queen of an island or something. It's like, whoa, that's quite a jump. So, yeah, very adventure-y. It's almost like Prosa Lutra, just like having all the adventures at sea and stuff. But I guess that's otters for you. Like anytime there's going to be an otter on the front cover, there's going to be water. So, obviously. Um, but yeah, writing was pretty decent, so I'm gonna stick it in the B category. Oh gosh. Alright, the Rogue Crew. Trying to remember this one. I think this is one of the ones that I have in hard copy. So the Rogue Crew is similarly, story-wise the same. Like these vermin find out about Redwall Abbey. They think there's all these riches and stuff, so they actually literally set sail. Like there's a ship like going through the Mossflower River to get to Redwall Abbey and everything. And I think the two characters like trying to stop them and everything. The other thing too, readers should know about is that the Road Crew was published after Brian Jacques' death. So this was like the last and final book of the Redwall saga. So this was pretty much it. And I will say, even though my memory is like slightly off, I don't know why. I do remember like reading the last couple pages and like bursting into tears because it's like, this is the this is the end of. No, I'm not, of course, not reading Redwall because I can go back and read the books, which obviously I probably need to do. But at the same time, be like, oh, like like this is all we're gonna have of Brian Jacques and Redwall and getting to read about the characters and stuff. So probably gonna put the Rogue Crew in CCC for now. Alright, next up we have the Sable Queen, which actually I like the cover of this one, just like how action-packed. It's like, ooh, like this is gonna be fighty adventure-y, so we like that here. Trying to remember most of the story. I do remember it being a bit longer than the other books, and there was a lot going on, and it was a bit more gruesome to read and a lot more characters to account for. So I don't want to put it in D. Put it in like a low C. Like I do remember it did take me a while to read it. Like usually I could read the books in like 2 or 3 days. I think this one took me like half a week, almost like 6 days to read through because it was just like there was just so much and if you blinked you missed something. So read with care. Alrighty, Salamandastron. So this is the one where the one badger is like trying to train like a younger badger. I do remember reading it growing up. It was pretty interesting to see that dynamic and what was going on. So, probably put this one here. Tagarung, the otter that was actually raised by vermin, so it's almost like a switch from Outcast to Redwall. It was pretty decent, getting to see like how the other woodland creatures reacted to him because he had like tattoos and he looked like a vermin, but he was actually like one of them, so they were pretty confused. It's like, aw. They wanna be nice and kind because that's like their nature to do that, but it's like so conflicting. So I think eventually he gets accepted and he finally finds like the meaning of home. So I think that's pretty beautiful to read. Probably stick him. Yeah. All right, we got two more. We have Triss. So I actually enjoyed reading this one. Again, sea adventures. Getting another female protag lead. I actually do like her character a lot. I love how she was written out, and everything like that. So I'm gonna stick her next to Mariel. Mariel will still be like number one in my heart, but Triss is close second. And lastly, we have Martin the Warrior. Again, was a PBS kids show. Surprised they kept one particular scene in there. That was really sad. It was really sad to read. They did stick close to the book. This was also a book that I had to replace because the pages and the binding were falling out. So, yeah, it's a pretty good read. I would definitely read it. So it has to be before Mossflower. So definitely like read like Mossflower, Redwall, and then you could read Martin the Warrior. I think that would be like the three things. And then you can read Matameo and all that stuff, but yeah, I did like reading about his story, so I'm going to stick him in the B category. Alright, I'm going to mix these up and then we'll have our final results. Alrighty, and there we have it, JenMouse45's Redwall tier list. So hopefully it makes a little bit of sense. You can obviously see like anything like adventure-y, very different and unique, and lore are going to be like my top favorites, and then like some adventure, character development I think is really, really important, something a bit different and unique about each one. And then towards the bottom, it's kind of like, if it feels like just rinse, what is it? Lather, rinse, repeat type of stuff, it's just like it just doesn't stick in my head as much. So, but overall, I do enjoy the series. I do recommend checking out the books. Again, start with what did I say? I don't remember. Mossflower. Start with Mossflower, then Redwall, then Martin the Warrior, and then you can get into the heavy books like Lord Brocktree and the Sable Queen and all that good stuff. Eulalia is definitely up there as well. So, but yeah, I do enjoy the series. I do recommend checking it out. Also, I'll share the link to the Redwall Feast video below. There's a lot of yummy food. Actually, somebody should make that, like a Redwall food tier list. Like, there's so many. So many good stuff. Hot root soup, deeper in Everpot. Alright, so that's going to be it for me today. Thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my video. I really do appreciate it. Be sure to give it a like, subscribe for more fun fandom related content. Let me know if you're interested in Redwall as well, or if you might start reading Redwall. Do let me know. I'd be so excited to hear about that as well. And until the next video, peace, love, and kindness. Bye everyone!